Hello and welcome to the Galeblade News. The Duchess of Cornwall says she can't wait to hug her grandchildren after only seeing them on internet calls and at a social distance since the start of lockdown. The Duchess said missing her grandchildren was the worst and she had needed to resist her instinct to give them a hug when she saw them for the first time in more than 3 months. Speaking to BBC Radio 5 Live's Emma Barnett, Camilla also talked about her husband Prince Charles' recovery from COVID-19. The Prince of Wales contracted coronavirus in March, experiencing mild symptoms. He has since said he got away with it quite lightly. The Duchess, 72, who tested negative for the virus, said Prince Charles did suffer from a loss of taste and smell, from which she said he was nearly recovered. It sort of comes and goes a bit, she added. Camilla's conversation at the royal couple's official residence, Clarence House, in London, will be broadcast as part of the Emma Barnett Show, being guest edited by the Duchess on BBC Radio 5 Live on Tuesday the 7th of July, starting at 10 British Standard Time. She has been involved in the process of organising the show, helping to frame it with her perspective on issues that matter to her. Camilla spoke about something which will be very familiar to families across the UK, the use of video calls to keep in touch. She said that before lockdown she really hated the internet. I didn't understand it, and I thought, what's the point of this wretched thing? However, she said she has been using it to communicate with friends and family, and it's been brilliant. The Duchess did admit she had not gone so far as to try a Joe Wicks PE class online for fear of an injury. I would put something out straight away, she said, and she also revealed she has been very, very happy wearing her jeans for Zoom calls. You get into a way of life, don't you, she said. Lockdown Zoom fashion is very interesting because everybody can look very smart on the top, but I think if somebody took a camera underneath, they'd find some very interesting things. The Duchess said missing her grandchildren was the worst, and even though she has been able to see them at a social distance, that in itself was hard. You eventually get to meet them, you're so excited because you haven't seen them for 3.5 months, and your first reaction is to run up and hug them, and you have to sort of put up your hands. It's a very odd feeling. I shall look forward to the day when I can give them a huge hug again. Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, is using her guest edit of the Emma Barnett Show to highlight the issues she really cares about. The informality of the radio programme means you get something more intimate too. On the big issues that matter to her, the scale of domestic abuse during lockdown is an obvious concern, alongside loneliness and literacy levels. But there are also personal insights. Before her royal marriage, the Duchess of Cornwall's life was not one of the palaces and public engagements, and sometimes that more normal experience shows. She was recently reunited with her grandchildren after 3 months apart, but social distancing rules meant she couldn't give them the huge hug she said she'd missed. She's told Emma Barnett she'd enjoyed not dressing up and living in a pair of jeans during lockdown, and she described her husband, the Prince of Wales, as the fittest man of his age that I know. For the whole royal family, usual duties and visits have been replaced by online calls. But as the lockdown eases, things are getting closer to normal, with Prince Charles and Camilla recently visiting Gloucestershire Royal Hospital to speak to NHS workers. I wanted to go up to them and shake their hand and say you've done such a wonderful job, she said, but it didn't feel quite the same standing in my little circle. Don't move left or right, you had to shout thank you, and it's very different. Meetings are not the same when they happen remotely, she said. It is about connecting, and it's lovely talking to people. I like talking to people and sitting and looking at people's faces, and you can't really on screens. You don't get the animated look that you get looking at a real person. The Duchess of Cornwall also talked about staying fit, both before lockdown and during it. She has recently taken up ballet after a visit to the Royal Academy of Dance, where she is a patron. She saw a Silver Swan class of older people dancing and got a group of her friends together to try it. She said they all howled with laughter and said, "You must be joking," but gave it a go, and it is something she has carried on doing remotely during lockdown. Camilla said Prince Charles has not been tempted to join in, but he will walk and walk and walk. He's like a mountain goat and leaves everybody miles behind. She said the prince, who is 71, is probably the fittest man of his age. The Duchess has 2 dogs, Beth and Bluebell, who came from Battersea Dogs Home, an animal rescue shelter in London. Along I went to Battersea and Beth appeared, and she had just been moved from pillar to post and dumped. We thought it would be nice for her to have a friend. They found Bluebell 2 or 3 weeks later wandering around in woods, no hair on her, covered in sores, virtually dead. And they nursed her back to life, and her hair grew again. She's very sweet, but a tiny bit neurotic, shall we say. She said both the dogs love children, and while they are allowed nearly everywhere, including the sofa, they are not allowed to sleep on the bed. In February, the Duchess hosted an event for the charity Save Lives at Clarence House in London, and domestic violence is one of the issues she discusses with Emma Barnett in the programme. Camilla said she was inspired to get involved after an early meeting where people shared their own experiences, and one person told a story about a woman who had been killed in front of her children as a result of domestic violence. I don't think any of us could believe what we were hearing, the Duchess said. I could feel the tears starting to drip down my face, and I looked left or right, and everybody was trying to cover their faces or blow their noses. It was so moving and so tragic. Camilla said she was worried about the impact the coronavirus lockdown would have had on domestic violence victims. You can't run out of your house and go to your neighbours because you're on lockdown and nobody's allowed in, and it's a lot more difficult to get Save Lives or the refuges and all the wonderful charities that help. I said I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg. I think after lockdown the numbers are going to be so horrific. So what do you think about this situation? Are you a grandparent who's missing their grandchildren? Or are you the reverse? Are you a child who's missing their grandparents? Have you suffered any domestic abuse as a result of lockdown? Have you had any controlling behaviour? If you have, please mention these in the comments down below if you wish to. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.